So I heard you want to be a Magicka Sorcerer in Elder Scrolls Online. Well, aren't you in luck, because we happen to have school, and we'll teach you how not to press the wrong buttons like you just watched me do. What does it mean to be a Magicka Sorcerer? Well, Magicka Sorcerer is obviously very much so a mage in Elder Scrolls Online. They use a lot of lightning damage and a lot of magic. So if you want to play a mage in ESO, definitely something you can enjoy. Another advantage of Magicka Sorcerer DPS is that they can get by with using very little skills, actually. They can slot a fair amount of skills. As you can see, I have Inner Light and Bound on both of my bars, so I'm really only having to use a couple of skills. That helps keep the rotation very, very simple. For a Magicka Sorcerer, in all reality, you can use any race you want. If you're going for super high scores, of course, getting the best in slot race is going to help you out, but honestly, if you already have a sorcerer and you would like to make them a Magicka Sorcerer to follow along with Magicka Sorcerer DPS School, you go ahead and use them. Now, in my opinion, I do have a couple favorites for Sorcerer, and this is the order in which I would recommend them. I just want you to know it doesn't have to be that way. First off, I really like a High Elf for a Sorcerer. For a Magicka Sorcerer, sustain is difficult, as well you have a lot of lightning damage, and ESO, you definitely also use flame damage from your destruction staves. Well, High Elf actually gives bonus damage to your lightning and your flame damage, so there you get a little extra damage output. As well, you have higher Magicka recovery as a High Elf. That's why they are my favorite race to use for a Magicka Sorcerer. The next ones that are pretty good to be using for any Magicka class is a Dark Elf, a Dunmer. Dark Elves also give bonus damage, but it's heavily put towards fire bonus damage with only a little bit of lightning bonus damage, but they are a favorite for almost every single Magicka playstyle. So go ahead, pick a dark elf if that's what you like. Now we're getting down to just picking them because they have Magicka abilities or passives. A Breton will give you cost reduction. That's not quite as good as Magicka recovery. They will also give you some spell resistance, so you'll be a little bit tougher. A Breton is a Magicka-based race. Good choice for a sorcerer. This is actually what my sorcerer is, my main one. Then, as much as I don't like to say it, the final race I would specifically say may be good would be an Argonian. Although, if you know me at all, you know I don't like Argonians. They do have passives that are good for Magicka playstyles, like a Magicka Sorcerer. After Argonian, if you don't want to play any of those races, well then it really doesn't matter in what order the other ones are. They are mostly not geared towards Magicka, but if you want to use them, you go right ahead. The next thing you may be wondering is, what should you be leveling up? Now, if you've decided to walk the way of the Magicka Sorcerer DPS, you of course want to make sure that all of your skill lines are leveled up. This entire series is going to be based around non-pet Magicka Sorcerer, but I'm going to tell you now, I want you to get the very last skill in the Daedric Summoning line, so you might as well level up all those great pets anyways. Keep in mind, you will want all of your passives. The only passives that you don't really want out of your class skill lines for this Magicka Sorcerer School is anything that is directly to do with having a pet up at the time. So this could be including Expert Summoner or Rebate. You'll notice though, Power Stone does actually help even if you're not using a pet, and this is just having a Daedric Summoning ability slotted, which we will, so you also want the Daedric Protection passive. It's safe bet just to get all of your class skills and all of the passives. Now for sure, what do we really want? You're going to want Crystal Fragments or whatever the base ability is here. That's what you need out of the Dark Magic skill line. Daedric Summoning, you are going to want your Hardened Ward or Conjured Ward, whatever you would like. Haunting Curse. If you pick Daedric Curse, that's more for a pet sorcerer. And of course, your last final skill here. In Storm Calling, there's a good chance you'll use Mage's Fury. That is optional depending on how you like to use your build. Liquid Lightning will be big. Power Surge, super handy for when you're running around. Those are skills you absolutely want to be sure that you have leveled up. Then we're going to look at the Destruction Staff. You do want the Destruction Staff Ultimate, so you're going to have to level that baby all the way. As well, you want all of the passives. You will want Crushing Shock. This is completely, I can't tell you how valuable this skill is that it interrupts. It's just absolutely amazing. Elemental Blockade, bread and butter of all Magicka DPS. You absolutely want this. And if you plan on parsing against a target dummy all by yourself, you probably want to level up and morph Elemental Drain to help out in your parses. For your armor skill lines, you absolutely want to level up and get all the passives and, of course, the ability of the light armor skill line. This is important. All of these, very, very important, so please be sure to get all of the passives. If you have a whole bunch of extra skill points, you can go into the medium and heavy armor passives and grab the passives that do not require 5 pieces of that armor. You can see I have a couple of them, not quite all of them that I could, but I'm a little lean on the skill points. You will be wearing 5 pieces of light armor, 1 of medium and 1 of heavy, but if you don't have the skill points to be putting here, here's where you hold off. Don't put them in those medium or heavy armor skill places. If you are a vampire, that's going to give you a bonus. If you are a vampire, you absolutely want to have the supernatural recovery passive. That's probably really why you chose to be a vampire. Is it necessary? No. Will it help your sustain? Yes. With a Magicka Sorcerer, or like any Magicka class or playstyle in Elder Scrolls Online, you're going to want the Mage's Guild. You're going to want to level it up all the way that you can, because getting Shooting Star or Meteor, the ultimate, even just to slot it on your bar, huge help. As well, we'll be taking advantage of Inner Light. At minimum, at least make sure you unlock Inner Light. Maybe not Meteor, but you definitely want Inner Light. As for the passives, you do not need all of them, but just read through them. The ones that will actually help you out, because remember, we're not actively using these skills, so you don't have to worry about, decreasing cost of mages' abilities. Just go ahead and get the passives that you feel would be most helpful. You can also see them listed in my written guide on MissBizzPlays.com, because of course, this also has a written guide to go along with it. If you are doing Psijic Order, you are awesome. I'm not okay with leveling up the Psijic Order on my Sorcerer after I did it on my Templar. So this school guide will not be using the Psijic Order skill line. If you do though, Imbue Weapon morphs into Elemental Weapon, and Accelerate, morphing it into Channeled Acceleration, I do believe it's called, can be super helpful. Super helpful. Now, I really recommend that if you're going to use Elemental Weapon, get all of the passives. I noticed this on my Templar DPS. Getting all the Psijic ability passives was a huge help. So if you plan on using these two on your Magicka Sorcerer, go ahead, get all those passives. Undaunted. Now, you do want Undaunted Command. It is definitely helpful. Just like I mentioned before, Magicka Sorcerers don't have the best sustain ever. So go ahead and get that Undaunted Command. But what you really, really want is Undaunted Metal. Undaunted Metal is going to give you a little bit extra of every single stat for all the different armor pieces you're wearing. So definitely work on doing your pledges, do your dailies from Bulgrul, and get the Undaunted leveled up and get that Undaunted Metal passive. Of course, get all your racial passives. Don't forget about those. Hopefully you chose one of the races that is a little more Magicka orientated. Here you can see I actually have a race that is quite low down in my list of races. I say, hey, these are good, but at least she is Magicka focused, so be sure to get all of your racial passives. Crafting. You're probably a little bit confused, but yes, I want you to craft a little. You do not need to have everything completely maxed out, but in alchemy, medicinal use, If you can get that up to 3 out of 3 skill points put in there, potions last 30% longer. This now means that your crafted potions that you're drinking will actually last just a little bit longer than their cooldown. So it is possible to have those effects up 100% of the time. This is a huge help, especially when you are chugging spell power potions like you wouldn't believe. Second up is provisioning. Now, this of course is completely up to you, but it does help you save some ingredients and whatnot. You can get the Gourmand or the Connoisseur passives. This adds 20 minutes to the duration of any food or drink. You're likely going to be using Witch Mother's Brew, which is considered a drink, so grabbing this Connoisseur passive will allow you to go through less of them. Now, here is the part that everybody gets stuck on, and I'm going to touch on it, and I'm going to give you ideas, but I don't want you to get stuck here. Gear is not what makes DPS. When you are a DPS character in Elder Scrolls Online, I guarantee you your rotation is going to be like 70% of your DPS. Your gear and champion points and all that are going to be like 30%. How you use your buttons and how fast and in what order and all that nonsense, that is way more important than what gear you're wearing. Now, of course, is there good gear and bad gear? There is better gear. But a lot of this gear, something is best in slot because it's better, but there's something probably a lot easier out there to get that's almost as good. So don't feel like you absolutely have to have that best in slot gear. Now, with that being said, I will let you know what kind of gear is best in slot and what is pretty good. One thing to have is Sororia. Sororia comes from the Cloudrest trial. Depends on how you do the trial, but you can manage to get 5 pieces even just doing it normally. Sororia is probably considered best in slot currently for all the Magicka classes, but a lot of people don't do trials as well. You may not own Somerset. Something that is great that a ton of people have always used, it's been around since Orsidium, is Julianos. Julianos is a crafted set, so if you cannot craft it, you may just be able to ask in guild chat and maybe a guildmate can craft it for you. It is a crafted set in Orsidium, super easy to get your hands on, and it's a staple in every Magicka DPS's closet, always very good to use. Mechanical Acuity did get nerfed. It's not as good as it once was, but if you are going to be using Crushing Shock as your spamble, it can definitely still be something good. If you already have Mechanical Acuity in your closet, I highly recommend using it instead of buying or farming something new. If you don't already have Mechanical Acuity, I do recommend using Julianos or something else on this list instead, but if you already have it, go ahead and use it. Now we have what is our awesome. So those 3 sets were the super awesomes. Now these are just the awesome sets. Infallible Aether. This is a set that you can get from the Craiglorn trials. I like it just because, especially if you're a newer player, you're probably going to be heavy attacking more to restore some resources because your resource management's probably not going to be the best. Well, this actually helps you help your group out when you do those heavy attacks. It's not as standard for healers to be wearing this set anymore, so it's usually alright for one of the DPS to be wearing it, and it does give you the Minor Slayer bonus. Once again though, only useful if you actually do trials. Perhaps you do not do trials, but you do dungeons. Burning Spellweave comes out of a really simple dungeon. You can do City of Ash. City of Ash 1, extremely easy dungeon. You can chest farm without even fighting anything. As well, even if you just get a couple friends together, it's a really simple dungeon to do. Burning Spellweave is amazing right now. I personally prefer it on my Templar rather than my Sorc, and I really think it is better on a Templar than a Sorc, but if you already have it or you don't run trials, but you do run a lot of dungeons, it could definitely be worth trying out Burning Spellweave. Now we have Mother's Sorrow. Mother's Sorrow is actually an overland set that you get from Deshawn. That is in the Ebonheart Pact territory. So this you can actually farm dolmens, public dungeons, solo delves, world bosses, or you can actually buy it. From guild stores. Mother's Sorrow, as you can see by these prices, not cheap. because everybody and their dog uses it. Some people consider it to be best in slot because spell crit does scale well in raids. If you happen to have a set because you've been farming it and you're a little bit of a hoarder, then go right ahead and use it. Or if you don't do a lot of group content, this is a great option because you do not need to go do group content. You can get this in the overland. Now we're going to start off with our great section rather than awesome. This will be in the great section, which is necropotence. Now this is actually meant to have a pet active. So it's going to be pretty good anyways, but if you're going to be using this, you need to slot a pet. So you'll have to slot a pet instead of one of the other toggles I have listed in all my builds, but I did want to put this on the list because Magicka Sorcerers do also have the pet option, even though I'm not going to be showing it to you today. They do have that option, and this is a set that's really, really good for that. Now, another set that is in quite a simple dungeon and also really good to use is Netch's Touch. As I mentioned, sorcerers actually use a lot of lightning damage, especially in their class abilities. So if you go ahead and use a lightning destruction staff, then you're pretty much doing almost all lightning damage. So Netch's Touch, which you can get from the Darkshade Caverns dungeons, very, very, very good. Once again, the first Darkshade Caverns dungeon, very easy. So this is a pretty great set to use. If you happen to do a lot of Dragonstar Arena, go ahead and keep all that Destruction Mastery sets you have. This may be something that you haven't heard a lot of people are talking about, but it's a lot of people I've seen have been using Destruction Mastery in place while they've been farming their other better sets such as Sororia, and I've seen people do extremely well with this set. Of course, you're going to have a destruction staff on both bars as a Magicka Sorcerer, so that 5-piece bonus is always going to be active, and it gives you more Magicka. Who doesn't want more Magicka? That wraps up the great section of the sets. Now I'm going to take a look at some good sets. So these are all right, they're better than nothing. First up, we have Scathing Mage, which will actually come from the Imperial City prison dungeon. And otherwise, I also have Spider Cultist that I can't appear to bring up on my screen at the moment for some reason. I don't remember where exactly Spider Cultist comes from. It comes from one of the simpler dungeons, but keep in mind these do need to be like built around. You need to specifically build around Scathing Mage and Spider Cultist to take advantage of, and they are far from best in slot, but at this point, what I'm going to tell you is that anything with Magicka bonuses is better than nothing. So as long as you're not wearing a set that gives you all weapon damage and stamina, you're already doing quite well. I did give some crafted options such as Julianos out here, as well some simple dungeon options to get some jewelry because it is still quite difficult to craft decent jewelry nowadays. So go ahead, get yourself some gear, and we'll carry on. I will recommend that if you do have a Maelstrom staff, a Master staff, or an Asylum staff, please go ahead and make sure that you can build your build around it. I personally use an Asylum and a Maelstrom staff in my Sorcerer build, but if you happen to have a Master staff and not a VMA staff or something like that, you could also take advantage of that. Now we want to talk about the little things you may have forgotten about with your Magicka Sorcerer. First up, did you forget that you need a Mundus Stone? Don't worry, I didn't. The Apprentice or the Thief, they're both very, very good. Go ahead, try them both out, see what you like. If you only play by yourself, meaning you do not do dungeons or trials or any of that, you can use the Lover Stone. That will help you out as well. As for your stats, you can see that I do point some points into health. This is so I don't have to re-enchant any of my gear with health on it. I want to make sure I have 16.3k health all the time. I'm used to playing with a tank that has Ebon and gives me extra health. If you are a newer player, I really recommend at least 17 or 17.5 thousand health. That will help keep you alive. You are not going to be able to DPS while you are dead, so it is more important that you stay alive. Once you find your comfortable amount of health, and it can be through your attribute points, glyphs or whatever, go ahead and dump the rest of it into Magicka. You'll notice I have 0 points into stamina. I highly recommend you do not put any points whatsoever into stamina. As for food, I'm going to recommend 2 different things. Witch Mother's Potent Brew, that is something that you can get right now as you're watching this video because the Witch Mother's Festival is on as this video is going live. So go ahead, farm those Plunder Skulls and get this recipe. If you're watching this at a different time of year, you can buy this recipe on the guild store or you can just buy the drink. This is most likely what I would recommend. It gives you max Magicka, max health, and Magicka recovery. If you are unable to get that, go ahead and use a blue food. This will increase your max health and your max Magicka by a lot more. This means you won't have to put as many points into health. You will have a little bit more sustain issues though. If you are disgustingly rich, you can use Clockwork Citrus Fillet. But I don't have the means to be using Perfect Row every time I need to eat some food for my DPS character, so these are the 2 foods I stick with. Keep in mind there is more than 1 blue food per level, so there is Mistral Bunny, Banana Bunny Hash, there's also like some Salmon Malay. As long as it is max health, max Magicka, and it's for your level, go ahead and use it. Potion wise, we're going to have a talk about potions. Potions are huge on your DPS, but I don't want you wasting your hard-earned flowers, gold, and everything else while you are just practicing. So feel free to not use good potions while you're practicing. I actually highly recommend practicing your rotation on Demi with dropped pots. What those are is they are the potions that monsters just drop. Okay, so you can get these for free. Some of your friends might even send them to you because they'll have an overwhelming amount that they don't want. When you are doing actual difficult content, you will want to use spell power potions. Here, you will need some Lady's Smock, you will need some cornflower, and then you can use Namara's Rot or the Water Plant, which I always forget how to say it. That is how you make Essence of Spell Power. These are really, really good. They give you major sorcery. They give you more sustain. They are amazing. When you are actually pretty comfortable and getting good, in difficult content, you will drink these on cooldown. Meaning as soon as you are able to drink one, you drink it, whether you really need that Magicka or not. But you probably really will. If not, go ahead, use drop potions. They are better than nothing. They will help give you some Magicka, but keep in mind the bonuses do not last as long as the cooldown does, and they do not give you major sorcery, though Magicka sorcerers do have a skill that can give them major sorcery that I tend to slot in dungeons so I can cheap out and not use my good potions. Last but not least, I am going to go over my add-ons that I use on my Magicka Sorcerer. If you're on console, it is unfortunate that you will not be able to follow along this part of the guide, but if you're on PC, these are some helpful add-ons. Action Duration Reminder. This is the add-on that actually tells me how long I have left on my skills. As you can see, it works even when I change bars. Next up under my add-ons, I have a couple of things that are just so it can make my life easier. Can I horn? Can I horn? You've heard me talk about this before. You can see it right here. That is an add-on I created that's on esoui.com that just tells me if Warhorn is active or not. You can change what colors it is. To me, green means Warhorn is not active, red means it is active, and Minor Force is active. Yellow means Warhorn's active, but Minor Force is not active. It is actually, you're able to change it. Next thing I use is Champion Point Respec. This allows me to change my champion points per trial. Once you get into vet trials, that becomes more important. Combat metrics. You definitely want combat metrics. Combat metrics is what's going to tell you your DPS. It's going to tell you your uptime on everything. This is super important if you are actually working on improving your DPS game. Then we use crafted potions. You'll notice when I was in my inventory that some of the potions are colored, some of them are not. This is actually an add-on that does that. All of my crafted potions are colored. The more effects they have, such as my spell power potions, the better color they are. That's why my spell power potions are purple. Next up, I have dressing room. That just helps me out with different setups so that I can try different setups out or quickly switch between AoE setups or dungeon and trial setups. Drizzler's better rezzing. If you've ever watched me play and you see the soul gem pop up in the middle of my screen, you'll notice it points to a fallen ally who needs to be resurrected. When that soul gem kind of turns faded, it means someone is resurrecting them, so I don't need to be looking for them anymore. Enchanted quality, this is more so a quality of life thing, but as you can see, it shows me the quality of the glyph that is on my gear. That way I don't have to know if I already put a gold glyph on it or not. Kioma's repair and recharge, super amazing add-on that makes sure that all my gear stays recharged and my weapons, or my gear stays repaired and my weapons recharged even while I'm in combat. So that's a really good one to have. Now we're going to go all the way down to our Ratificator, just keeps track of all the different trials I do in my score. Raid Notifier is a helper add-on for arenas and trials in ESO. Srendar! Now, you've probably heard of this, you probably saw people use it, and you're like, I didn't know you use it. The only thing I use Srendar for is, wait for it, let's see if it actually even happens here. It is for my, there we go. Did you hear that ding for the Crystal Frags proc? That is Srendar. That is Srendar doing it. And as you can see, my action duration reminder tells me how long left I have to use that, quick cast proc. In Elder Scrolls Online, the base game, the icon does now change when your Crystal Frags procs, and you can use it instant cast, but I still prefer the sound that Srendar gives me. And as you can notice, that's literally the only part of Srendar I use. I have all the buff tracking stuff turned off. Show global cooldown. Show global cooldown is something I really believe every person practicing DPS should have. As you can see, my skills go gray with a little sliding animation. That's to show that there is a global cooldown in Elder Scrolls Online, and I am unable to use another ability while it is grayed out. So it helps you make sure that you're using your abilities in a good timely fashion, not too fast, not too slow. So that was my overview of Magicka Sorcerer DPS, and this is part 1 of my Magicka Sorcerer DPS school. I am Miss Bizz. Keep in mind that this is going to be either weekly or bi-weekly, so keep an eye out on Sundays for the next part. You can also view a written guide for this that may have more or less information on MissBizzPlays.com, and I hope I gave you enough information to at least start leveling up your Magicka Sorcerer, so by the time that we get into part 2, you have your Magicka Sorcerer ready to get going, and we can start learning some things and applying those things you learn. Thank you for joining me. Bye for now.